Mille grazie per avermi invitato qui in Parco Nazionale di Abruzzo. Mais ça, c'est tout l'italien que je connais et je ne peux pas faire ma conférence en français, mais si j'aurais pu, on aurait pu. Alors, j'avance en anglais. Yep, okay, good. I want to talk about something specific, and that's Europe's national parks and wild nature. Saturday, I'll talk more about wilderness specifically, but I want to talk about the greatest human invention of all time, the national park. There is nothing finer, there is no greater expression of culture than a good national park. Eso es Parque Nacional de Aguistortes en España, Cataluña, España, un parque nacional magnífico de los años 20, del 21, the 20th century. Thank you. And I'm going to give you some definitions that are my own of what a national park is, and I will continue mostly in English from now on. A national park is a place where people enjoy protected nature in a way that leaves the area unimpaired for future generations. The focus is protected nature. People are included, but in the context of keeping nature intact. The idea of a national park is at once democratic, for it is devoted to the public, and yet removed from purely local interests, for it is dedicated to all of society. We must not lose track of this. It is at a higher level that a national park operates. They are institutions that belong to everybody. They are not just about local interests. This is critical. I say this coming from a family that is from a national park. I took this photograph 100 meters from my mother's front door at Christmas this year, in Banff National Park, where my mother was born. My family comes from a national park. I grew up in the city of Calgary, but I'm 5 generations of a national park family inside a national park. So as a local person, I can tell you this is what national parks should be. A national park is simultaneously a public expression of love for one's country and an international action of benefit to all of humanity and nature. It is thus an institution ideally suited to Europe, I would argue. This is a photograph of Grand Chief Herb Norwegian, Decho First Nation, who lives in the Nahanni area of Northwest Canada, the superintendent of Nahanni Park, my colleague Alison Woodley on the right from the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society. Together we were able to create a new national park with the full support of the local First Nations last year in Canada that is 3 million hectares in size. 3 million hectares, no roads. Very nice. Now I want to talk to you about the state of our world. Whoops, that's going faster than I want. This is the world at night. It is a very busy place. There is one species that is not in any trouble at all in this world, us. Humans are very abundant and very successful. Nature is not. Nature is in trouble. We need to do something about that. National parks are the primary vehicle to do it. There are other means for doing it through protected areas, as Sarah discussed. All are important. National parks are especially important. This is the state of our world now, called the human footprint. And in this slide, you can see intact areas in green and heavily fragmented areas or areas under a lot of human pressure that are in the color pink. You can see Europe has a lot of pink. Eastern North America has a lot of pink. China and India have a lot of pink. But there are still places that have a lot of green, including Romania. And this, of course, is Europe. And I want to talk to you about how I perceive Europe. I first lived in Europe 35 years ago in Switzerland. I went to school here. And I have come to Europe more times than I can count. I think Europe is very special, even though I am a Canadian from Western North America, because Europe is where I originally come from, as do most North Americans still. Europe is hugely influential globally because of the cooperation assistance you give. And Europe is still a place that has ideas that matter to the whole world. So I argue what Europe does matters to everyone. So let's think about Europe for a second. Europe, in its natural condition, is one of the most magnificent places on the planet. It is not just a place that has spawned great culture. It is a place of great nature. Indeed, culture was spawned by nature in Europe. These paintings from Lascaux are some of the oldest works by humanity. They are about nature. They are about humans experiencing nature. The idea that nature nurtured humans was fundamental in European thinking right up to the time of the Etruscans. And then something strange happened on the way to the Forum. We began to think that we were apart from nature. Very strange. Very, very strange indeed. The first culture to do that was the Roman culture. The Roman culture began to convert nature to human needs. I'm talking about ancient Rome here. Converting nature wholesale to the point where Pliny, 2,000 years ago, wrote about these mountains that we're in now, the edge of them towards Rome. Often indeed devastating torrents unite when from the hills has been cut away the wood that used to hold the rains and absorb them. Ecological degradation viewed real time 2,000 years ago by Pliny. There's a sense in Europe, I get, that because we've been here so long, had people for so long, the continent is in a special condition. It's mostly about the cultural landscape and nature. I'm going to argue that's not right. I'm going to argue you should think about what condition Europe should normally be in. And I'm going to argue you should think about Europe being in a condition where nature is abundant. And I'm going to make the case that that has been the case for most of European history. It's just recently that most of Europe has been converted. This is Europe and the world at 1 AD. Roman Empire. You can see where the depopulation clusters in dark black are. Coast of China, in the Indonesian area. Italy has got a big population cluster. The area of the Netherlands, London, has a population cluster. There's only 150 million people in the entire world 2,000 years ago. This is the first million years of human history. Now we go forward from ancient Rome. We all know that that civilization collapsed, and in its place, another European civilization arose. And that was a civilization that was much less hard on the landscape. Strangely, it's called the Dark Ages, or the medieval period. This was a period of great cultural accomplishment. It was not dark at all. The great cathedrals of Europe were built, and nature was fine in this Europe. This is a picture that's of an old landscape in Spain, in Asturias, where there's lots of beech forests still, and there was human use of the landscape. This is a product of medieval civilization. It was advanced. It was European. This is the world's first protected area. It was created by William the Conqueror in England in 1070. It's called the New Forest. It's still there. A lowland beech forest, a fabulous place. This is as beautiful a place as any old growth forest I have ever seen anywhere in the world. And I've seen lots of them. And I've seen them in the United States, I've seen them in Australia, I've seen them in Canada. This is a fantastic place. It's an hour south of London. It was created in 1080.